Hey, we got an amazing video for you today. So I got to meet with Cody from the Trad Lab. Dude, he blew me away. He just is. I would consider myself a new guy, maybe almost at that intermediate level in terms of archery and my knowledge, and really a newbie in hunting. And this guy is just a plethora of information and just a super, really awesome human being. So I got to shoot with him the other day because he's right here in Kansas. So I took the opportunity to do a quick interview with him. That's what you're going to see next. But hey, stick around to the very end because he explains how he deals with sort of target panic and how he sets his shot up and what his shot cycle is. And it's great. It's really helped me a ton. So that's at the very end. So you'll get to see the interview first, and then Cody will go into his shot process. And it's refreshing to see someone at his caliber talk about it. He is the epitome of humility in an archer, and just exemplifies the barebow community and the traditional community to a T. So anyway, stick around for that. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's really important that you like and subscribe and comment below. And if you're not new to the channel, comment below. We'd love to see those comments. I get back to everyone. If I don't, I promise I will. Okay, all right, I will. I definitely will. Definitely, I will. Okay, well, that's it. Watch the interview. Roll that intro. Hey everyone. Okay, so today's pretty cool day. We got Cody from the Trad Lab here. If you don't know what the Trad Lab is, you're about to find out. So, hey Cody, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good, man. So, tell us a little bit about your origin story. How'd you get started in archery?
I've been shooting since I was probably in the 3rd or 4th grade. You know, back then it was you'd get a big chunk of styrofoam from the marina and you'd shoot at it. And I think it was after a Halloween in the 3rd grade where I dressed up as a hunter, and my dad got me a little bow and I started shooting, and just stuck with it ever since. I put a gun down probably, I killed an elk with a gun. It was the last animal I took with a gun, and that was probably 10, 15 years ago. And then I put the pound down around 4 to 5 years ago.
Oh, so okay. So when you put the pound bow down, did you just start to go into barebow, or were you an instinctive archer, or were you string walker, or what was it?
At that time, I was a gapper. When I started I guess what traditional archery is today, because when I started shooting archery, we didn't have really traditional archery in the mid to late 80s. I traded a pocket knife for a Ben Pearson in junior high, and that became my recurve later. And I hunted with it, but I killed my first doe with a bear whitetail 2, which is a pound, but we didn't have sights. Right. We just shot it with fingers. And then I went to a recurve later on, and I tried to shoot instinctive for quite a while. Actually, it probably took me I don't know how many years. I gave that up when Masters of the Barebow, I think it was 3 that came out.
Welcome to Masters of the Barebow Volume 3. IBO World Champion Rod Jenkins coaches you to use perfect shooting form to groove your shot into the subconscious mind.
Rod Jenkins explained gapping, and it clicked for me. And I ran out in the backyard and started playing with it, and really got excited. But I was one of those guys at that point that would practice all year with my recurve, and then right before whitetail season would come out, I'd grab my pound, get it dialed in, and go hunt. And it was
you just didn't trust yourself, or
yeah, I just didn't have the accuracy, right? So I wanted to be able to, at that time, if I saw a deer, I wanted to be able to take it, and I just didn't have the confidence in my ability. So it was in Iowa, I think. I shot my last buck pound, and I think it was a 63-yard shot. It was my biggest buck, and it didn't. It wasn't exciting as it used to be, and I found myself not shooting does at all, just because it wasn't as exciting. And now if a doe comes by without a fawn, I'm dragging. So it's changed. It's changed for my motivation quite a bit.
I don't think a lot of us are like that at that point yet, but that's pretty good for you. You mentioned something really interesting there about, and I think you were gonna touch a little bit on it, and we kind of skimmed over it, about ethical hunting. And just being ready to shoot, and traditional, when you're using traditional tackle to take out any kind of animal, I mean, you got to practice, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can't just go out there and just say, hey, I'm going to shoot for a couple days and then.
No.
Right. I mean, yeah. And so tell us a little bit about some of the kills that you've had or some of the hunts that you've been on.
Well, I mean, I've been on a lot of hunts. This year I'm trying to cram in as many as I can. And like I told you before we started, I'm trying to, the advice I received, it was actually last October from Aaron, was go hunt, as many different animals as you can. And I titled myself Whitetail Ignorant. Because I had the same story everybody else does. I've hunted my whole life, which makes me, a subject matter expert. When in reality, I still have a lot to learn. And I started shooting and hunting different animals, and it definitely opened your eyes because different animals require different levels of energy and completely different methodology for hunting. But this year I've gone after aoudad, hogs. I've got 5 hogs so far. Wild boar, and then I have axis under my belt this year. So far that's been my favorite. So
That's so incredibly impressive.
Every year from the rest of my life, I hope June, July, I'm hunting axis in Texas because that was a really, really fun hunt. And what else have I got into this year?
You're saying gators?
Yeah, I had a gator hunt scheduled, and I had to run back because we had problems with an RV. I'm going to try to fit that in the next few weeks, and then we've got a bison hunt coming up at the end of July that I'm going to try to get in on.
That's pretty amazing. Hey, so speaking of subject matter experts, that's a good segue into, what are you doing now? Tell us a little bit about the Trad Lab.
In terms of tests?
Yeah, no, just in general, what is the Trad Lab? Some of the, not everyone's going to know exactly what that is, and so it's tradlab.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's let's see, make sure I get my dates right because time's flying. I think it was 2 traditional IBO worlds. It was 2 IBO Trad Worlds ago. I went to Trad Worlds with a wood arrows and a debo, and I went with a buddy of mine who basically had to force me to go. It was my first scored 3D event, and it's Trad Worlds, right?
Yeah.
And I get there, and I wasn't near as proficient as I am now, and I still have a lot of improvement. But when I got there, I felt like I was proficient because I had never seen the guys that can actually shoot. And whenever I went to Trad Worlds, a light bulb came on, and I always use the analogy of the 5-minute mile. Until you see these guys shoot these recurves like they do, you don't even know I didn't even know it was possible. And they shoot them like most of us shoot compounds, quite frankly. If you take the average compound shooter 0 to 33 yards, these guys will roll them up.
Really?
With recurves, yeah.
Wow,
you're going to Trad Worlds, right?
I will. Yeah, I'm going to go to Trad Worlds in Tennessee in the middle of July here, so I'll be able to see that and experience it. That's the first time for me, and people who watch this channel really, I mean, they're usually the beginners or they have some experience, but not to that level, right? So if they've gone to if they get an opportunity to go to a Trad World or something like that, I mean, that's just amazing.
It's a game changer, yeah. I would say going to an event like Trad Worlds or any of the large IBO events or even ASA, but that had a bigger influence on me than going to clinics and coaching, because you get to see 30-40 of the top nation shooters, and they all have slightly different styles, and they all have some similarities as well, and you just kind of you can walk up to any one of those guys, stick your hand out and say, I'm new and I want to learn, and they will lay it out for you. And that's exactly what happened to me and for me by Dwayne and Calvin and
Calvin Smock and Dwayne Martin.
Right. And since then I've I guess it was at that event that Dwayne turned to me because I was questioning, I think, what he was telling me, and he turned to me and he said, 90% of what you read on the internet is false.
Oh wow.
And I just couldn't believe that at that time, but then he took me out on this little side course, and he's just unbelievable, and he's right. What I thought was a good bow was not a good bow. What I thought was a good arrow tune was not a good tune. What I thought a good shooting method was, I was very far from the truth.
Yeah.
And then I watched all the top guys shoot, and you can see the similarities and differences, but they all shoot in a very similar way. They all have methods. They all have strong processes that they shoot through. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of clicked for me at that point. And at that point, I think I had been struggling with trad for 12 years, I think, just trying to get good, wasting money, buying this, buying that. And I went home and I just changed everything, and I started Trad Lab at that point in time. I bought my first set of ILF limbs, And my professional background is kind of I have a degree from Purdue, so I've got some engineering background, I've got some quality management background, and I blended those two to try to create because I wasn't a good enough shot or a good enough hunter to provide an opinion.
Yeah, okay.
So I wanted to provide quantitative facts around what's good and what's bad. And I tried to do that on the website was my original intent. And then I ran into the Push guys, Matt and Tim, and we started the Trad Lab podcast, which is kind of a Mythbusters version of it. Yeah. And now I've really become immersed in that, and to the point where I've probably performed 40 total studies for Trad Lab, but you get into something and you go somewhere else. You get into something, you go somewhere else. Wait, so it's hard for me to complete.
So as an example, what have you looked at so far that we might be interested in? Like
the very first one that we published, the first one I did was on strings. I'll be going into another study on strings, but the first one that we published was on feathers, was on the back of the arrow, and at the time I think I was running 5-inch feathers everywhere, and I just bought the equipment and started shooting and started testing in crosswinds to try to find optimal, and I found a 4-fletch to be optimal. And trad vanes had just came out. I didn't know anything about trad vanes. I didn't know anything about Aaron Snyder or Greg Poole. The Push guys handed me these and said put them in the test, so I tested them, and that created a lot of controversy because they performed really well and they were quiet as they went through the air, because feathers obviously make noise. So I tested arrow configuration in that study where we had like 12% FOC, and then I think I bumped it up to 18, and then I just tested the different arrow configurations, and what I realized was that the longer the feather, the more liability that came with it, and especially when you're dealing with center shot bows.
So, and that is in itself for traditional tackle and people who have been shooting for years and years and years, just would blow people out of the water, right? I mean, everyone's saying throw 5-inch feathers on your shield cut feathers on everything you have.
They think it makes it recover faster. And my method is the same method I use at work. If I get deployed somewhere to determine, Cody, we need you to go here and figure out what's going on. I use the same methodology in Trad Lab. I go interview the subject matter experts at work, and I get their opinion, and then I try to get the average opinion, and where those differ, where the experts differ from the average opinion, I try to close that gap.
Oh, okay.
And with traditional archery, it's really, really easy to do that because the actual experts are a very small group. And it's odd, with exception to one person, the experts are a small group that don't talk a lot online. Aaron Snyder's a subject matter expert, and he's online because he has to be. I think he does it because it's a way you can go hunt. But most of those guys aren't going to argue with you online, and they're not going to. So I go try to interview those guys, and that's how I got the leading theory here, is that Tim King was using this configuration, and then I noticed that a top 3D archer globally was using the same configuration. So you go test it. So that's what I do.
So if you haven't been to the tradlab yet, .com, go there. There's a bunch of other studies that are currently on there. Just amazing, and it could challenge your basic theory or your thought if you're using traditional gear right now. But go, I think it's almost irrefutable proof that these things work and these things do not work. Can you tell us what you're working on right now?
Right now I'm getting ready. My goal this week is to finish the first half of the arrow study, and I've gone out and when COVID first hit, the first thing I did was dive it because I had some free time on my hands. I dove into the Ashby papers and I read them in detail. So I went out and purchased every top end arrow I could find, and I'm testing parallel, tapered, aluminum. Then you've got the FMJs, and I've got micro diameter 204 standard, and I'm holding everything else constant. I'm holding knock constant. I'm running IP knocks from AAE. I'm running hybrid vanes from AAE on that test. I'm running all the same configuration of fletch and the same point weight for the most part, and then I'm shooting them off my hunting rig, which is a 50-pound VX, $21. And I'm comparing penetration across different target mediums. And I'm testing also FOC versus arrow weight and things of that nature.
Do you got anything you want to share? Just like a little tidbit that you could say that, hey, this is going to blow you away?
I think it's if we were to, and I was just talking to Matt Zernzak this morning. If we were to stop right now, we have enough to disrupt common knowledge. And I think I don't think I'm going to blow away a lot of people. I think a lot of people are going to go, I knew that the whole time. And I think they were right. And I think I'll say this. I think the old timers are going to love the results on this one, because the some of the rules of thumb that the old timers use are proven to be very, very effective.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for stopping by, man.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Tradlab.com, check it out. It's an amazing resource for anyone that has traditional tackle or anyone that's in traditional archery at all, whether it's bare bow, instinctive, it doesn't matter, stick and string. Great stuff. Thanks, man.
Most of my posts are going to, I have a Facebook page that people go to, but I don't post there a lot. I post most of the time on the Push listeners group.
Right.
And then I have an Instagram that's the Trad Lab, and I post there a lot as well. But most of the discussion and learning and open, like if you want to contribute to the studies, that's where we do it on that Push group. And I want to hear from people and let them kind of steer what we study.
No, good point. I mean, the Push Archery, if you haven't checked that out, you should have already checked that out. Matt over there is just amazing. And he provides really good, awesome gear as well, too. So
yeah, those guys are solid.
Yeah, very solid. So anyway, thanks again, and let's go shoot some.
Let's go shoot, yeah.
All right.
The game. The pressure's in between both forearm bones. I have a chain link here to my elbow, right? I don't have any tension in my forearm. Now I raise the bow, I come to alignment, and after I'm at alignment, I aim, and it's panic city. There's voices screaming in my head, let go.
Yes.
Perfect shot, let it go right now.
Yeah.
And I have to, it's miserable, and then I take my eyes off of it, I get myself put back together, and what I do now is I put my eyes back on it and I try to count, but I fail. But that's what I'm working towards.
It's funny. I know exactly how you feel, and so does everyone else.
It's just screaming bloody murder to let go of the string. That was easy, wasn't it?
Shit.
What happened? Okay. This work. Now, what do we look at? Each other?
You just look at the kids,
Okay.
but don't look at that. Okay, make sure you're looking at the red, the foamy thing if you want. That's better, because you look over there, your eyes will go over there, and I do that. I mess that up all the time.
You look over here. Okay.
Yeah. Try not to do that.
So look at the microphone.
Look at the microphone.
Got it.